Hey, what's up guys? Big Gob here with another One Piece TCG video, and today we'll be talking about my run at the Carta Magica Treasure Cup on November 18th, which I had just competed in, going 8-2 and placing 35th with Film Kid. So I'll go ahead and talk about my deck list and then go ahead and talk about my run and the matches I played, how the matches went, some things I would change about the deck list, and some adjustments I made throughout the tournament that I learned to implement while playing with Kid. I'm normally a Whitebeard player, but since the ban, I decided to take my talents to Eustass Kid, and this is my second tournament ever with Eustass Kid, and I actually won a local, going 4-0 with Eustass Kid, beating a Magellan player, 2 Katakiris, and then Red Purple Luffy. So without further ado, let's just get into the deck list, So first off, let's go into our 2K counters. So we run 16 2K counters, 4 2020 choppers. Never really sees the board ever. We run 2 Baby 5. This card is good because if you're going second and you're on your 6 Dawn turn, you can play this card and then play Law, bounce this card back into your hand, and either play a Nami or play an Usopp. And let's say you even have 7 Dawn in your hand, you could play this card, bounce it back into your hand with Law, play the Nami, and be able to use Nami ability. So you get so much Dawn from being able to use this with Law Blocker that it has a lot of value. And of course, it being a 2K counter, despite it not being searchable by either of your searchers, is still really, really good. Then here, 4 Scratch and Poo. I thought I would use this once, but it really never solved the board. Just because I feel like I never even wanted to use it, especially because it takes a Dawn to attack, and I feel like a lot of my turns required like the exact Dawn to apply the correct amount of pressure without, playing a 2K counter on the board and having it die in the next turn. And then for our last 4 2K counters, we run 4 Izos. This card came in extremely clutch today. Really helped me in my final match against Crocodile. One of the boys back home from Orlando, Frank. We ended up playing in the final round, the 10th round. And on turn 2, he won dice roll, so he went to first. He played Sentomaru, and then with 4 Dawn up, I played Izo, rest of the Sentomaru, and swung 6 at it to either get cards out of their hand or to kill the Sentomaru, to slow down the curve to get the pacifistas not so easily. So that's it for our 16 2K counters. Let's go into the actual deck. We run obviously 4 Jewelry Bonnie, just a staple in kids, in any kid deck. It has 23 targets in this deck. Very, very good. Obviously, sometimes I feel like when I played it in the beginning, it wasn't that it was a problem, but I always liked having cards in my hand. So the fact that my opponent had to distract themselves with the Bonnie, even though it did help me, it obviously have better survivability that the swing isn't going to me first. I wanted to be able to keep spamming this card. So the fact that I couldn't be able to spam this card and keep searching other supernovas with it, sometimes made it a little bit annoying, but I don't think that problem ever came up today. And next up, we run 2 Bartolomeo film cards. Looks really, really cool. Barto, end of your turn, you may rest this character and set up to one of your film cards. Other than Barto is active. Okay, I didn't even read that part. So what usually you use this card for is you can use it to restand any of your film cards that you don't want to die in the following turn, especially Nami or Luffy when you want to avoid lethal, or if you want to keep drawing cards into your hand. Next up, we have 3 vanilla Usopp film, obviously. Just a vanilla, really good. Really good to go if you're going first. Really good to complement with Brook. Really good to complement with Brook and Luffy if you don't have the Nami or Barto that would be necessary. Just really good. And then we have 4 Namis. Really, really good card. Love the art. Have the altar, but I don't really like playing with some of my altars. I just like keeping them in the binder. On play and when attacking, searches the top 3 of your deck with 1 Dawn to find any film cards. I think Nami whiffed for me about 4 times today, which is probably a little less than the average, thinking that knowing that I have 22 targets in the deck. So being able to search a little bit less than half of my deck is really, really good with Nami. Even though it is just only 3 cards, it is likely to whiff, so it's okay. Next up, we run 4 Film Brook. Love the art on this card. Brook does on play up to one of your other film cards with a cost of 3 less. So obviously, this is a really good combo because you have the Brook, you have the Nami. If you go first and you didn't play Nami on curve, you can play Brook, play Nami, and have 1 Dawn extra to play her ability. So next up, we're going into 4 Zoro Vanillas. This card is just really solid because if you don't have Brook, or if it doesn't seem useful enough to play the Brook after you play the Luffy, this is just a really good stat line to complement your Luffy with, because you play a 7 cost 7k body on the board that's a blocker that brings out a 4 cost 6k vanilla, which is just really good stat line. Zoro definitely came in clutch for me in this event. Next up, we run 1 X Drake. Now, I know a lot of other players had this number at like 2, 3, or 4. But I felt like a lot of the time you're not really worried about the 4 costs being rested. And I feel like there's a lot of other stronger cards you can play that are just superior to X Drake. I think I played X Drake only once today in a game where I won, where I chose to KO a Parasparrow and a Mino Koala at the end of the turn, just because or the one instance actually was I triggered a Punk Gibson off life going into my 5 turn to rest the Mino Koala on the enemy board. I swung 5/5/5 with the Brook Nami that I had played the turn before, and then I played X Drake to KO the Mino Koala, leaving the Magellan with only the 5 cost Magellan and leader on board. So this card came in clutch when it did, but I think other times I just used it as a 1k counter or as a trash card for leader skill. So as we said before, I know a lot of film kids actually don't run the law blocker. To be honest, I feel like this card complements the deck really well. I was even thinking about adding in Killer, the 2 cost 3k blocker that draws a card if it has a Dawn on you of 3 or more characters, just because I feel like blockers, especially cheaper blockers, very much complement 8-drop kid, and they very much complement you being able to be aggressive while having a defensive result at the end of the turn. Law, I think, also does that very well, because if you have Nami on board and you don't have a full board already, you can swing with Nami, use her ability, play Law, replay the Nami, and then swing and then use her ability again. So you basically get 2 cards for free for just 2 Dawn, and you get a blocker. So I think that's really good. This card definitely came in really clutch. I think 2 is a good number for it though, because you already run a lot of deck cards in, so you don't want your hand to be a full of deck cards. And I think at the 5 Dawn mark, sometimes you don't want to play the law blocker. You want to be more aggressive, or you want to play characters with stronger stat lines, or you want to play Brook, Nami, and then use like a Nami ability. So now, to be honest, who I think is personally the MVP of today's tournament is these Frankie Film Vanillas. Now, even though it's a vanilla, it's 5 cost 7k, which is like the King Dew of Whitebeard, or the King Dew of Film. The fact that there's not a lot of red, since a lot of red got nerfed, makes this card very strong, because you can swing with it and then don't have to be worried about like an ace ever coming out. You know, you don't have to worry about this card not being useful, because you're not going to be able to swing with it for a turn. This card, I played it once against a twice against green-purple Doofy, and once against a Katakuri player. Prayed that it didn't get Thunderbolted, but I played it in a way where if it did get Thunderbolted, with the Katakuri already being at 4 life and not having a single board, where they wouldn't be able to accomplish much, and then I would aggro and put them at like 1 to 2 life immediately. Right after that, and then that would be like on their 6 Dawn turn, you know. So on my 7 Dawn turn, and then they crack back to 8, and they don't really have too much to play on their 8 Dawn, besides like a 7-drop Big Mom. And then if they slowly do that, and I still have like a lot of life and a lot of resources, then I can just keep aggroing for the rest of the game. So this card definitely came in really clutch. Next up, we run 3 Luffy blockers. I love this card. To be honest, I should have run the alt art for this card, just because even the alt art is so cool. Luffy came in really clutch. Sometimes I I feel like Luffy has the same problem that like a lot of other blockers do, where you kind of just have to like pitch it and get rid of it, you know, because they're swinging at 5. And if it's not complemented by the card that I'm going to show next, which is like a little spice, just because it's not in every film deck, then Luffy is a little bit lackluster. What makes Luffy really, really strong, though, is being able to play Brook into Nami, or Brook into Usopp, or Brook into Bardo. Just because you're able to fill up the board quickly with 5k bodies that are just applying immediate pressure. So blocker, great on play effect, good stat line. Next up, we run 2 8-drop Kid. Now, after playing today, I feel like this should be like at a 3 or like a 4. Like I feel like my chances of winning skyrocketed every single time I saw this card. Every time I got to play this card, I felt like the game was just like immediately in my favor, just because it's so hard to get rid of in this meta, where unless you're fighting blue, they can red rocket, and unless if it doesn't mess with their curve, they get thrown immediately off. And then if you have another one in hand, or if you have a Luffy or a 10-drop Doofy, you're immediately going to apply immediate pressure again. And unless they play Red Rock and then put a Missile Sunday, it's very unlikely that they're going to have double Red Rock back to back. And even then, you're applying so much pressure as Kid, just because you have such a wide board at this point. And you have your leader, and you probably applied so much pressure where they have low cards in hand, they're looking low on life. They might have a board half full of blockers, but a lot of your cards end up resting, or a lot of cards end up dealing easily with blockers. So didn't see much of a problem with that. Sometimes I even played this card without the extra Dawn on my 8 Dawn turn. One of my games, actually my last game against the Crocodile, I rested the Kid and played the Nami raw, just like no effect at all for either of the characters, just because it's a very easy way to get the character on board. And if blue goes out of their way to attack this character, since they don't have a 9-drop on board already, since I played this on 8, it becomes very, very hard for them to tackle this card unless they have Red Rock or 10-drop Kaido. And lastly, for our characters, we run 3 10-drop Dofis. I was assuming more when I was building this deck that I want to focus more on surviving in a way where my opponent can't kill me, rather than a way where my opponent can't hit me. I feel like a lot of the players I played around 10-drop Doofy very well, or they made it just very tedious to play this card, because it was either in a situation where I took too many hits and I would be in lethal, or I could only rest like 1 to 2 characters and not get so much value out of it. I think I played this card in about 3 or 4 of my games, and those games that I did play this card, I did end up winning. It did come in clutch when it did, but it was also very scary to play, because actually in my second game against the Magellan player, after being 1-1, he actually had lethal, because I just played the 10-drop Doofy, rested his king, his Eustass kid, and his leader, so he only had a law blocker and a queen blocker, and I only had 1 life and 3 cards in hand, and he didn't have 10 Dawns, so he didn't feel confident going for game. But at that point, if he had gone for game, he definitely would have won, because I had 8-drop on board, but I had no Dawn on him. And then the turn after, I played another 8-drop, and then just had both of these guys with 1 Dawn on them, a 10-drop on board. And at that point, even if you can kill 1, you're not having lethal to kill in that turn, because you have to focus on not just killing 1, but killing 2 of these 8-drop big bodies. And lastly, we run 2 Punk Gibsons. Honestly, I know going into the tournament, I was like, man, I wonder why like I don't run like 4 Punk Gibsons so I can see it off life. And it really made sense to me when I was playing that you really don't have the time to play Punk Gibson. It becomes really late into the game where it's like at a point where you have like 3 or 4 cards in hand, but Punk Gibson's one of them, and then you have your 8-drop kid that you want to defend. Then it comes to a point where Punk Gibson is really good. But until that point, it's not really the best card. The trigger was amazing. I think it triggered off of me, or triggered in life, either 2 or 3 times for me this tournament. One time was against my first loss, the green purple Doofy, who ended up beating me. And then the second time it triggered was against the Mino Koala that I mentioned earlier. So both times were actually really clutch, because they ended up stalling me for a turn. And I think if I actually clicked chose the blocker that the green purple Doofy had up, I probably could have gone for lethal that turn, instead of picking their 10-drop Doofy. So that's it for the deck list. If I could make any changes, I would definitely add another 8-drop kid. And I would try to definitely just another 8-drop kid. The 8-drop kid was just so clutch for me. I don't know who exactly I would take out for it. Maybe an Apu just for one less search. So, but I don't know. Maybe I could focus the deck more around its engine being 8-drop kid rather than seeing the 10-drop. But I think the 10-drop came in clutch when it did. Cause I think in my second to last game, my round 9, I played 2 10-drops back to back, and that just solidified the game. I think I could have played defense with a Luffy blocker, but it still ended up working out for me just fine. My matches today were round 1 was a no-show. It was 10 rounds. Round 2 was a green purple Doofy that I ended up losing to. The game really wasn't that close, but I think besides one misplay, they just had the whole board. They just had the whole game state. I didn't see my 8-drop. I didn't see 10-drop. I think I saw 1 7-drop the whole game. It was unfortunate. It is what it is. And then I ended up beating 2 Magellan players before losing to a category player actually from my scene. And then I just ended up winning every round after. My next 2 rounds were category players. My next 2 rounds were GP Dofies. And then my last round was the Blue Croc player. And then I ended up going 8-2. So I think the only other game that was really close besides the Magellan game was the Croc game. It really came down to if I could aggro before the Kaido drops, and if I put them in a position where they can't play the Kaido without losing that same turn. So I forced the Crocodile player to go immediately to 1-0 life within turn, I want to say turn 3 or turn 4, right before they could play the turn 3, I believe. Applied immediate a lot of pressure. I swung, or it was turn 4. I had an X-Drake on board, and I had it was turn, I forgot what turn it was, but it was the turn before they could play Kaido, and I swung 9, 7, 7, 7 with the Zoro, I believe. So it wasn't X-Drake, it was Zoro. But that's my deck list. That is my tournament run, getting 35th place with kids. Second time ever playing kid in a tournament. Hopefully I can get some more tournaments with kid, because I had a lot of fun. I feel like a lot of my fundamentals showed that I've learned in the past couple months in TCG. Just want to thank my scene CF people in Orlando for helping me out always. You know, I could not have gone better anywhere as better as I could have. Shouts to all my friends for helping me out playtesting and practicing the deck with the deck building strats. And you know, shouts to all the God Riders always. So thanks y'all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and yeah, if you have any suggestions, let me know. Peace out, y'all.